Well, our guest today is Laura Vogt, author of The Great Quiet, and this is your debut novel, Laura, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. What inspired you to look into this world of people that from the past?
Well, I've always loved historical fiction. I just am very fascinated by how people lived long ago, and I was a history major. I love the past. Growing up, I wanted to be an anthropologist. I love the past, but this specific story, it's based on my ancestors. So about over a decade ago, my grandmother was telling me stories of her grandmother and her mother and whatnot, and she told me of her grandmother who participated in the Oklahoma land rush, and I remember being completely shocked because I had never heard this story, and I knew enough to just like, ask a lot of questions. Like it was very surprising. So that's what inspired me when I heard this story, and I was kind of given like an image of the character. That's all my books start. I kind of see a woman in a specific situation, usually kind of where they're not supposed to be, kind of pushing the boundaries of society, like a woman kind of rushing somewhere. And I had an image of Minnie, and that's just kind of where it started. And I started chasing down the research.
Okay, well, what themes do you think this book is exploring?
Exploring. Okay, well, I try to ask a lot of questions and themes. I was really interested in memory and ancestry and time and those kind of questions, and regret and longing. I think in community, I actually was thinking, I was curious about, because she flees into the wilderness, my character Minnie. She goes into the wilderness, she lives alone. And so I was very curious about a character that wanted to live without community. But of course, you need, I mean, it's kind of, we need people. And then I actually was writing it during 2020. So I was already writing it, already had this vision. And then 2020 hit when we were all forced into isolation. And it was very interesting to think and see how community and isolation, just to think on those themes while I was experiencing it myself.
And yet, you start the story from the viewpoint of the earth as a
Yeah,
narrator.
I do.
Why did you choose that? And
Well,
because the narrator says it screams, but no one listens.
yes, I do have a lot of themes of like eco-fiction about the earth. That is another thing that very, very passionate about and very curious about. I think it's kind of at the root, the search for home. Like we have a search for home, and the idea of space of your own and land, and that was kind of part of it. But I also am very. I was thinking about just the, I guess just the way humans have. I imagine Earth as a character, and like what would she be feeling at this time? There was railroads. There was there was a lot of. I just kind of imagined her as a character, and I thought it would wove well with Minnie, my character, because she was trying to find home, and just so that yes, there is a lot of things about the earth and questions of how we treat the earth, and it's very subtle. Like I feel like it's a very subtle, because you hear from her voice, you kind of get a little glimpse of, but not, yeah, that is a very strong thing.
It's so unusual. So describe Minnie Hoops. What is she running from and to?
Yes, that is one of the biggest questions I had, because I had this image of my ancestor in my mind, and she was on a horse, and I was like, "What is she running from? Like, why would she do this? Like, why would she go into the wilderness?" I mean, it kind of sounds. I mean, there's some people had a lot of fun with it, but also, and there was a. I was curious. So that was one of the biggest questions. What was she running from? And she is running. She has some past choices. I won't give spoilers, but she did make some
Oh,
choices. What you?
yeah, yeah. Don't spoil.
Yeah, she was kind of running. She had a plan for her life. She had a certain plan, and she was prepared to go on an adventure in the wilderness, but she was planning to go with her sister and her best friends, and that was her plan. But it kind of all crumbled and fell apart about 6 months before the novel opened. So the novel is read present day, but you do get flashbacks to kind of weave into memory and history of like what happened, why is she here, what is she running from. It's kind of pieced together, and that also was fun to explore the idea of memory, how your memories affect your present day. And also I was just also curious about playing a little bit with memory, about the reliability of memory, and it was probably one of the more fun parts to play with.
And then she runs into Stott. Tell us
Yes.
about Stott.
So the novel is based on my ancestors, my great grandparents, and so Minnie Hoops is my great grandmother, and she married a man named Stott, but she married him a decade after the land run, And so I wanted there to be a love story that happened in the timeline of the maybe about the first year of her life in the Wild West. And so he's completely made up. So Stott is an outlaw. He has lots of secrets. He's kind of a swaggering, I would say, kind of sexy cowboy. So he's and so she meets him and is very concerned by him as he has a reputation and he seems, so it's kind of a little bit of an enemies to lovers, not really, but a little bit of her trying to figure out who this man is and can she trust him. She's kind of forced into a situation where she has to trust him, and that is a kind of a pivot of the whole novel, is what is going to happen here.
Yeah. And she really is, though, after land of her own, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about your writing itself. The entire book reads like poetry. It's highly accessible imagery. How did you learn to create whole scenes with a few verbs?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't know. I think that's one thing I would tell writers is sometimes it takes a while to find your voice and to I do write poetry. I think for me, I always kind of I love to play with the language. And I think when I was younger, I would play around and maybe it was just a little too much. So I think I learned how to play with language for rhythm and just sound. I listened to my work a lot, and I don't know. I think it's instinctual, and but it was a long time. Took a while to kind of figure out how do I like to write a sentence, how do I like to tell a story. And so I tell writers if you know you're working on novels and it's taking a while, maybe you're still learning how to find your voice. And also my specific character informs the voice. Minnie, I think her specific, when I imagine this woman at this certain time period, I think how I imagine the 1890s the sound does kind of impact the prose. So.
I mean, I love such description as she sees herself, her life stutter by, and she yearns, her yearning is twined into her sorrow and shuffling too fast between possibility and despair. I mean, that's vivid. So you just do that by playing around with words?
I think so. I think playing around and yeah, I think so. Just playing around and so I think I'm trying to think of how I like to kind of get in their head a bit and imagine. I love textural details. I love to add in the tree, but not just tree, but say aspen. I love to. I think as a writer, you're always observing and watching, like and noticing and trying to think about make it feel textural. But I don't know. I think the language is maybe instinctual. I have written for a long time and I read a lot and I do write poetry. So I wonder if that informs it. But it's really just playing around, moving things around and seeing what sounds good. I do really like to fiddle. I really enjoy fiddling and moving around. And then also learning. I've learned sometimes you have to cut things. So like to cut out what's not working to let those certain lines shine. And refining, like sometimes my first drafts are a lot longer, and then I like refine to kind of cut out what's just too much.
Interesting. Well, on occasion, Minnie questions the truth of her own story, and it almost seems at times that you, behind the character, are wondering where this story will go. I just wondered, do you question that when you're writing? Do you say, "Oh, where is this story going?"
I think I always have a plan. I'm very character driven, thinking about the character. I typically have a strong idea where it's going to end, and have an idea of what I'm hoping she learns and how the things she grapples with or whatever issues that she's grappling with. So I have an idea, but I do, sometimes I have no idea sometimes I have a plan, but do I know for sure? And I also think because learning as a human, like as human, it can be messy. Like we never fully finish or we never fully arrive. We're always still, at least I hope so, always still grappling and growing and becoming stronger. So I do think there is that sense of, does Minnie know where she's going? I don't know. Sometimes we don't as humans know where we're going. Sometimes we stumble and fall.
I really love that. You use physical movement and the quality of light and shadows to
Hmm.
portray Minnie's feelings.
Hmm.
How did you master that technique?
Doris, you have this the best question. That's so sweet. Well, I do that one. I have a more specific answer. I actually was a photographer in my 20s. I was a wedding photographer, so I do love the light. I do love to watch the light. As a photographer, you really watch light. So I do think that that one specifically, I am always watching the light. I think like light glows are gorgeous. So I've actually, I think I sometimes wonder. That's kind of a joke I had. I was like, can I? How many times am I allowed to reference how the light plays across the floor? How many can I do that when it's too much? But that is honestly one of my go-tos is to first think of how the light is in a room, how the light's in someone's face, how the light is across some shoes. That's something I think just that's his personality. I just love
Oh,
the
yeah.
light. And then
Well,
I
it paints the whole picture. It paints a whole scene,
you know,
just through those words, the use of those words in that way.
hmm.
Um, when people ask you to write certain stories, what do you say?
Oh, what was I'm sorry, what was your question, Doris?
When people ask you why do you write certain stories, what do you say?
Such a good question. I think that I'm very drawn to women's stories. I'm very drawn to I'm just a mom. I'm just an everyday mom. Um, living I don't living my life. So I'm always very curious about those kind of undiscovered, the stories we don't really tell. So I'm kind of looking for women that and I think it's kind of important to me to say you don't have to do something extremely dramatic to make the history books. I'm just very curious about those kind of overlooked everyday women. And I just am drawn to, I think it's just instinctual. Certain characters or stories pop out. I'm like, that one's very like vibrant and vibrating. And that's interesting. It's very instinctual. And I do think now more about what readers might enjoy, like what story would a reader enjoy following. But it is just kind of a pull, like a pull. I have a lot of ideas and which ideas kind of tugging me the most. So
That's a good way to put it.
it's kind of like which one do I? And also sometimes there's which one can I not? I can't wait on any longer because I have other ones like you and I talked shortly before we jumped on, and then I had some ideas, and one of them. I'm like, I think that one can wait a little bit longer, but there's another one that's tugging me. Like, I got to do this one now. So,
Yeah, I like that. So, in the acknowledgments, you thank your agent, Catherine Cho, and Lake Union editor,
mm-hmm.
Emily. You better say her last
I
name.
actually, that's really sad. Friedrich, I actually don't know how to pronounce her name.
Yeah, yeah, something like
Got
that.
that. I should know how to say her
But she
name.
must be pretty good.
But she's fantastic.
How do you think those folks have helped
Oh,
you with your
oh,
manuscript? And did it
oh,
go
yeah.
through many edits?
Yes, they did. When I queried Catherine's phenomenal, my agent. It, it we worked for about a year, and I do think with Catherine we kind of ripped it apart and did more. And she's really smart. She's really brilliant. She has a lot of ideas, and she really challenged me. I think that was the hardest. She really pushed me, and like a lot. And so I think I don't know how I actually say it, but like this book wouldn't be the same without her. I think I had other agents offer, and I chose Catherine because I thought she would challenge me the most, and she did. So she did.
Mhm.
She did push it. I think she pushed the book like as far as I could possibly go. Like sometimes she'd ask for an edit, and I would say, I don't even know how, because she wanted me to filter in more memory. She wanted me to filter in more of. She thought we're starting the book almost in the middle. We needed more of the past instead of starting the book 6 months earlier. Let's just weave it in. I was like, I've never done that. I've never filtered in backstory. A lot of readers cannot stand backstory. And so I was like, how do I do that, Catherine? So she would sometimes give me like, read this book or do this. She was very, I was like, I don't know if I can. So she did push me. And Emily's been fantastic. She is a cheerleader and encouragement. And she's been unbelievable. They both have been, she like was more refining. With Lake Union, they did a lot of refining and polishing, where towards the end, I felt very confident that I had an incredible team to get the best possible work that I could do. So this is for me. This is the best I can do. So
Yeah. How long did you work on this book?
I started it in 2019 in the fall, and I was pregnant, and I was querying another novel, and I was planning and hoping to finish the draft by the time I had my baby in April. But then I have a daughter that was diagnosed with diabetes in January, and then COVID hit, and so I did not end up finishing that draft. So I drafted it in 2020, but I'm very proud of myself because that was a busy year. And then I edited it for 2 or 3 years, and then I queried, and then Catherine and I worked for a year, And then I about another 6 months or so with my publishing house. So just those
How
times.
many agents did you query before you found Catherine?
I'm trying to think. Oh, I had another novel that I queried, and I mean, I'd probably say 100. And I did have good responses, and people liked it, but I did not. I think that's one thing. People, if they're listening and they're writers, they really do have to love it. Like I had people that liked it, but they spend so like Catherine, I spent a year. How many times did she read it going back and forth? It has to be more than just this is a good book. It has to be they're passionate and they love it. And I actually asked Catherine, when did you know that you're going to offer? She's like, I don't know the title. Like she just knew, she just liked. She's like, then the first line, I'm like, okay, that was not the answer I expected. They kind of have to fall in love a little bit. And so,
Yes.
so my first novel did not get an agent. And then with Catherine, I don't remember how many, but that one had I was getting requests pretty fast. I think probably something like 75 or so I queried. And then
75, but not all 75 responded.
I think most did. I think I got about
Did they?
like maybe like a third or so asked for more. I think,
That's
and then
great.
asked for a full, and I had 3 offers. So I
All
was,
right.
people, the agents were, and that's another thing. They were so kind. Like even if they would pass, they would say something nice. I was very, just as if people are in the trenches querying, like they're people too. They love books. That's why they do this. They love books. They love stories, and they're just trying their best to find the ones that speak to them the most.
So, what are you working on next?
Okay, so next I'm working on another historical, and it's the 1880s in Ireland, and it's a woman who's a botanist. So she's like first generation academic, and it kind of something happens where she has to also kind of flee into the wilderness. She's running from a she's been accused of murder, so she's running, and she has to kind of. So she's a botanist, so she knows a little bit about the land. So it's a little bit of a survival story as well, and then she meets some people that help her out. So it's a little bit of a in the kind of wild landscapes of Ireland, and it's based loosely on my ancestors were boat builders in Ireland. So it's very loosely based on that. So.
Okay. And how can a new writer stay encouraged against tough odds in the publishing industry today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think just continue to return to your page and why you love it, to remind yourself why you write. Sometimes I would literally write down, why do I write? Like just write it down and return to why do I do this? Why do I write? Why do I love it? And also, I think another thing is have a good support system. I'm very lucky that I have people that really believed in my work, my parents, and I have a couple good friends that they just kept encouraging me. And my husband's very supportive. So I think it's important to have a support system that encourages you to keep going if it gets hard, and just to remember, why you love it. Try to have fun and be okay with waiting. Sometimes it takes a long time, and I'm okay. I really am. I'm not just saying that, but I really am genuinely happy my first book did not sell. I think this is a better debut. And I think that book, I hope someday will come out, but if it doesn't, that whole time I was learning how to write a book, how I like to write a book. So I'm much more confident. I think if that book had sold, I did love it. I love the characters. I actually think the romance is I like the romance a little more. Like I think it's a really strong book, but I think that this one to make me use cleaner. I think it's a strong debut for a stronger debut. So I think it's.
Well, I have to agree. It is a strong debut. I mean,
Thank
I
you.
think that every woman should read it.
You were so sweet.
Thank you, Laura Vogt, for talking with us today. And just to remind people that your book will be out in March 2026. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doris.